But they'd get there, and that said a lot about these people who really wanted to say hello to all their old friends, come to the meetings to enjoy them, and maybe help someone else along the way, teaching them. And also there were those who were interested in learning from these wonderful experienced hikers. What a college that ALDHA is. It really is. It's a college. And you don't have to pay but $10 a year to go to this college. It's an instructional organization like I don't know of any other. When I retired, a year later, the ALDHA meeting was here in Pennsylvania, and not far from here. George and I went, and this was to be the goodbye to Jean kind of thing. And so we stood in the back of the auditorium watching the rest of the meeting. It was after the initial meeting. And all of a sudden, the Cavalcanti, no, the Singing Horseman. Did you know that that's what that Di Cavalcanti means? The Singing Horseman? I didn't either, but I guess it's Italian or Spanish. Anyway, he's going to hear this and he's going to say, "Don't you even know what nationality I am?" Oh, dear. He got up and he said, "Okay, Jean and George, come on down front." So as I stepped out from way at the very end of the auditorium, I wasn't even sitting, we were standing there, all of a sudden Jester appears right in front of me, and he just reaches, and he's a big guy, but he reached down and scooped me up, and I weigh 100, by then I was about 140. He just picked me up, and that was a long auditorium, if I remember right. He carried me down there, and I'm at the whole time saying, "Put me down, I can walk, I'm not an invalid." "Oh no, you're the queen, you've got to be carried down to your throne." So I ended up getting carried down anyway, and George is behind laughing and laughing. Sat down, and oh, there were all kinds of wonderful awards or presentations, and Alda was so kind to George and me. I should include George in more of this. My husband of 33 years now went to every Alda meeting, every conference meeting, and we just had the most wonderful times talking to hikers. He was always a Boy Scout master, so he knew what hiking and camping was all about. So he tremendously enjoyed meeting everybody and talking to them about the year between, what happened. Noel said, "Okay, now we're going to have some entertainment." And Cindy Ross and I really wish I should have called her, found out who else was in the skit. There were a bunch of people, and they were taking off on Jean sitting at the desk at ATC. And Cindy had this white mop, down over her head. I could sit here and laugh 10 minutes just remembering how she looked. And she imitated me perfectly. I said, "Boy, she really knows me." And George said, "Well, how many years have you been interacting with Cindy?" And I said, "Yeah, a long time, but the girl is really a wonderful actress." And so they did a dance. Whoever else, there were a couple guys in with her. I'm embarrassed that I can't remember who all it was. But they did some kind of a dance. And I just had the best time that night that I'll never forget it. Something else happened years before that, but this isn't an ALDHA story, but it's a hiker's story. And it was so fun. It was at one of the ATC conferences. And Sourdough Bob and Rose was his wife's name, Rose. Her trail name had the word Rose in it because that was her name. Anyway, they did a skit at one of our conferences. And it was at the ALDHA gathering part of the conference, though. And it was all these hikers. And it was Warren Doyle and Cindy and Sourdough Bob and his wife and I don't know who, maybe 6 or 7 of them. And they were hiking through a big snowstorm, and they were having trouble getting settled, and what were they going to do? They got to a shelter, and they decided they'd have to hole up for the night, and it was all very hikerish, well, I'm going to do this, and you're going to do that, and we'll make it okay. And 1 or 2 of them said, "I don't think so. I think we should go back. I don't think we're going to make it." And this was at the end of their hike up in New England. And now this is a skit. all of a sudden they see remnants of a fire, a hiker's campsite. And they started to kick around it, and there was a bottle in it. And Sourdough's wife picked it up and said, "There's a paper in here." Cindy took it, and she took the paper out, and it said, "Don't stop now. Keep on going. Love, Jean." That was my job, keeping on. And they had it down pretty solid. They knew that they couldn't give up. And I'll never forget that. That was a wonderful memory. I think they wanted to give the people in the northern part of the trail an opportunity to get to the meetings if they couldn't get all the way down to West Virginia. And so Hanover was a perfect spot. That again worked out beautifully for Warren, and the spaces they gave us to set up our sales desk, and all the people coming in were right there at the entrance of the, I forget what building it was, but they could set up the registration desks, and everything worked out so beautifully. And I remember one year it was warm enough that we could be outside, and there was a glen somewhere not too far away, and we could set up there right in the middle of these big rocks, trees, and the weather was gorgeous, and we were there the whole time. If I remember correctly, we didn't ever have to close up, over the couple days. That I recall was wonderful. Woodchuck, yeah, he was always so boisterous and energetic, and he would pick me up some of the time. He'd just say, "Here she is," and set me down again, and catch me up with what was going on. And I was very fond of his mother and father too. I don't know if you know it, if whoever's watching this knows it, but Chuck Wood Sr. was a carpenter, and he made birdhouses for anybody and everybody, and he always put a little plaque on them, the number, or not a plaque, but the number of the birdhouse, which was consecutive to as he was making them. And he and Chuck and Chuck's mother came to visit us when we lived on the river, and brought us birdhouses and beautiful wall sconces that he had made out of old barn doors. He used the old barn door wood. And Chuck was just so happy to be there and looking at the trees out in the yard, where they were going to put them. This was when we lived near Harper's Ferry. And I remember George hanging them up, and there were always birds in them, and he did them with the idea of smaller holes for wrens, and then there were bluebird houses, and if we wanted a duck house, he would even do that. Well, now we need it out on the pond, but he's not around anymore. Chuck Wood is, though, and he made us, for every anniversary, every grandchild that was born, he made us a birdhouse, and I have them all here. And they all have plaques on them with his inscription and which numbers they were, and I think we were up to over 500 and something by the time, yeah, you can see them before you leave if you want to. And that was Woodchuck, and he was always at those meetings and always had something wonderful to say. And Raven, there's only one Raven, and we haven't heard from him lately, and so I need to call him, because he always visited us when we lived near Harper's Ferry, and he taught me how to take pictures of birds going into Chuck Wood's birdhouses. And I remember sitting, and I'm thinking, "Raven, you're here for a visit. Do you really want to do this?" He said, "Just wait." And then all of a sudden, the right bird would come, and we'd get the picture. And after he'd send me the pictures, he'd say on the back, "Now, wasn't this worth waiting for?" And he sang beautifully. And so did his wife. His wife and he hiked the whole trail together. And I'm not sure